Self-worth isn't a super common conversation in the business world, and my guest today is all about changing that. I think in business, we often think that we're fine, I'm fine, my showing up isn't an issue, my procrastination isn't an issue, my overworking isn't an issue, it's just I love working or I'm just scared of this. But sometimes it might be a little bit deeper. And so my beautiful guest today, Sam, is all about helping us to kind of understand our self-worth and if that's playing an impact in our business, the way that we show up and the success of our business in essence. And so I'm so excited to introduce you to Sam and so excited for you to hear today's episode. So if you don't know Sam is a psychotherapist and self-worth coach. She's a mum and a passionate advocate for being radically kind and compassionate to yourself. Terms like self-compassionate, self-worth and self-acceptance get used a lot these days, but to Sam, these aren't just nice sounding words. Her degree in social work, postgraduate qualifications, training in cognitive behavioral therapy, family therapy, gestalt therapy, and decades as a practicing therapist and coach have shown her these inner resources are the difference between being stuck in survival mode and confidently thriving. So let's dig into today's episode with Sam. Hello, Sam. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited for our chat today. It's a concept I don't think we've chatted about at all on the podcast yet, and so I'm very here for it. But before we get into it, I would love to get to know you a little bit. So one of the questions I love to ask my audience is this idea around what does your life actually look like beyond what I see on Instagram? So what does an average/dream kind of day look in your life and business at the moment?
Yeah. Okay. I love this question. I feel like for me, I know a lot of mums in business kind of like they work like most days and then they'll have like lots of time with their kids as well. Whereas I'm a bit of I love to time block. So I'll have like a whole full day in my business and then a whole full day where I'm not working and I'm with my daughter. So I'll kind of answer it over two parts if that's okay.
Sounds perfect.
So my like dream day or the days that I really love when it's like a business day. So like Tuesday, Wednesday, when I see my clients, normally start off in the morning, like getting my girls ready for school, so my daughter's 7, so I get her ready for school, and my baby's 15 months, so I get her ready for daycare. And I'm really lucky that Nick can do like school drop off and daycare drop off 2 days a week. So it gives me a bit of space after we've gotten them ready and he's taken them. I like to make myself a chai latte or go for a walk to the cafe and get a chai latte. And then my favorite thing to do at the moment is my group coaching calls in permission granted. So they're usually about 9:30 till 11 my time. And then I have like nice lunch, do a little bit of like admin, bit of work, and then I might have another coaching call. And then actually even my 2 business days are quite short because I have to pick my daughter up from school at 3. So this is what's funny when you have a like daycare age child and a school age child, that the day can be quite short. Then I pick my daughter up from school and maybe she's got like an activity, so I take her to that activity and I can do a little bit of like social media work from, like, she does gymnastics, so I can do a little bit of work on my laptop. And then home time, family time, dinner, like the chaos of like the bed, bath, all of that kind of stuff. So nothing like super glamorous there, but it's nice. And I'm still breastfeeding my baby. So that's like our nice like connection time. And then, so they're my 2 like work days, but then Mondays and Fridays I have just with Frankie. And so we might go to like kinder gym or music or something like that. And then I try not to do too much work on those days. Like when she's napping, sometimes if I feel creative, I'll do something, but I quite often just like to chill, read a book or chat to a friend or something. Yeah, so my days are very, like, each day is really different and I like that. I don't like every day to be the same.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. It feels a lot more calm than my work days, which usually don't end up being like, often it's just work. Oh, it's lunchtime. Should I eat something? We'll find out. And then work. So I feel yours feels a little more calmer, which I hope that I get to that point at some stage.
Yeah, you definitely will. Although, how old's your daughter?
She's 2 and a bit.
Yeah. So, because I feel like school, like you kind of think school's going to make life easier because you get more childcare, but the 3 o'clock pickup is actually quite hard.
Not actually that long between getting home at like 9:30 and then leaving. Oh gosh. So
yeah,
fine. I'll deal with that bridge when it comes.
Yeah, there's always after school care. I always try to do like one full day of work because I love like longer stretches of working.
Oh,
So one day a week, she's normally at like an after school activity at school. So
gotcha. Makes it a
yeah,
bit easier. Yeah.
if it
Noted.
sounds calm, it's just because I have a lot of support.
Yeah.
Like I don't like to try and squeeze it all into naps and everything. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't work for me. Then I end up stressed and my girls pick up my energy and all that. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool how you're so aware of that. I love it. All right. And so could you share with us a bit of your business's journey and how you've got to what you're doing now?
yeah. So it's a bit unusual because I was actually a social worker from like the age of 21 to I just turned 40 this year. So I've been a social worker for a long time. And then I retrained as a psychotherapist and I was working full time at Headspace, like doing counseling with teenagers when I got pregnant with my daughter. And then I took like a year off when she was born. And I think becoming a mum just made me really reflect on like how much being a social worker, being a therapist, like it just took up so much emotional energy, even though I loved it. And I just knew it wasn't going to be like the right job for me with as a mum. So when my daughter turned 1, she started daycare and I decided to start my own psychotherapy practice. So I just started off one day a week and then 2 days a week seeing clients. Like very much, I've always been very much part-time in my business. Like there's never been a time where it's been like full-time hours. And yeah, I was really loving the psychotherapy work. I think like it's quite easy with that kind of business. Like it's all word of mouth and it just grew really naturally. And I hit 6 figures quite easily. But then what I noticed was like I was still seeing about 16 clients a week to actually do that.
Yeah.
And, as my daughter got older, I started to realize like, hey, she's a pretty sensitive kid. Even as she gets older, she still needs a lot of emotional support from me. And so, yeah, I decided to kind of start the coaching and the online business. And it kind of came out of a need for me to change the way I worked with people. I wanted to work with people in a less traditional, less medical model kind of way. Like with my psychotherapy practice, there's like a need for diagnosis, a need for GPs to approve Medicare rebates and all of that.
Mm.
And I loved it, but I was also like, I know that there's like other ways that I could be helping people. And at the time I was talking to a lot of mums in business. I was part of like a business network in Perth. And I noticed how much they were struggling with like work-life balance in inverted commas, because like obviously I don't think work-life balance is realistic, but they were all struggling with like blending the two roles. And also, yeah, there was a lot of talk about like imposter syndrome and self-worth. And I was like, actually, like all the stuff that I help my therapy clients with, a lot of women in business could also use that support. So that's kind of how I started that journey. So I kind of shifted from the private practice to the online group coaching and one-on-one coaching.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story. And so
Yeah.
right then you just touched on a little bit of what business owners struggle with. And one of those was self-worth. Could you
Yes.
explain like what you saw in people and kind of what they were struggling with in that category?
Yeah. So often I feel like self-worth, if you think about like our mental space as like an onion and like peeling back the layers of onion. So often people would come to me saying, oh, I need help with work-life balance. Like I'm burning out. A lot of women in business like would struggle with switching off and like they're overworking. They're not giving themselves any time off. And at first we would look at that was the problem. But when we actually kind of peeled back the layers of the onion and got to the core of what was going on, it was all often a sense of like, I'm not enough. And so I'm not enough. So I need to work really hard to prove my worth to myself, and we've all been conditioned like through the education system, through many, many ways we've kind of been taught that we need to work hard to prove our worth, like you get the attention, you get the praise when you're the best at maths, when you win the gold medal. And so sometimes that can then kind of come into the way we're showing up in business. So it either shows up in overworking, and this is obviously a simplification. It can show up in so many ways, or it can show up in hiding, like a sense of, well, I'm not enough, so I just won't do that live today, or I won't tell anyone about my coaching because if I show up, what if I fail, or what if they see that I'm an imposter?
That's so powerful. I hadn't really thought of that connection before, but it's definitely I can see how that would definitely be the case for so many business owners. And like, we're probably the kind of person that business owner is often, I guess, a little bit like, we're very kind of go-getter because we kind of need to make it work. We need to push through the things. And like, I was definitely a high achiever at school. So I can see how this could definitely apply if I kind of thought things through. And so it's just so interesting to see, I guess, how you noticed that connection there. And so when you were starting to work with these women, how are you finding you were able to help them? Like, what strategies and tools were you helping them to think through?
Well, one of the concepts that I teach, and it takes a while to kind of really believe it in your body, but is to just simply think about a baby and when they're born. Like, we don't expect anything of them, ideally. We just see them as beautiful and perfect and enough. And then it's almost like all the conditioning from school and competitions that makes us feel like we have to hustle for our worth. And so really teaching them, like, the way that I define self-worth is that everybody is innately worthy. You don't have to work for it. And so then it's just learning to separate your business out from your self-worth. So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still be ambitious and that you can't work hard and go all in for your business. But when you separate your self-worth, then all of a sudden, if you have a rough launch or business is a bit quieter, your self-esteem and the way you see yourself isn't like crashing. It's more of a steady way of viewing yourself.
Yeah, it's not like, our identity isn't based on, oh no, that sucked, or that one client hated me, or this comment was mean, or this launch went badly. It's just, that's what happened, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just part of life that happens, like life, but it's got nothing to do with my self-worth. Like, I'm still worth just as much. And it's the same with I often also coach mamas, and I find a lot of mums, if they were really like perfectionistic, like had really high standards, then you become a mum and you can't be perfect as a mum. It's impossible. And so then often I would notice that for those women, their self-worth would take a bit of a dive, as well. So it's kind of a concept that I think I just noticed as a therapist, whenever I dove to the core of what was going on for my clients, a lot of it was like at the core, this feeling of not being enough.
Yeah. And so you said it takes a little while for people to kind of feel it in their body and kind of accept that as the truth.
Yeah.
Are there any ways that you've seen people take that on, that is like some tips to kind of take that on and really believe it for themselves?
Yeah. I think, like, think about who you are as a human, not just what you've achieved. Like, if you were lying on your deathbed and people were thinking about you, they would be caring about how you made them feel. And like, they don't care how much money you earned or how much you achieve. So really getting to the core of like what matters to you in your life and what your values are will make you feel like, yeah, I still want to achieve these things, but they're not actually a part of who I am as a core. And then, of course, it's like good old fashioned like mindset work, like paying attention to the stories you're telling yourself and choosing to rewrite them and being patient. Like, I used to think, like, am I doing my job right? Because I'd kind of repeat myself with my clients a lot. And then I remember speaking to like a really, really amazing psychotherapist. And he was like, no, that's a sign you're on the right track. Like, people need to hear the same thing loads and loads of times before they actually take it in, which I know, like with, I've had like amazing business coaches before who I've been like, oh yeah, like they're giving me the same advice they gave me like a year ago, but sometimes it takes time to hear it. And so also finding a coach or finding a therapist or someone in your life who's like incredibly patient and supportive and won't judge you if you need to hear things more than once.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so true. It's like a case with everything in life, is we need to hear it so many more times than once, and like at different phases in our lives it hits differently, or we've just had this realization and then, oh, Sam said that's what that means, and just kind of taking it in on that new kind of level. That can be so powerful. And so what are some other ways that you kind of see, you kind of were giving some examples earlier of how self-worth, if we don't have that self-worth, how that kind of manifests itself in our business. Can you give us some more examples of what that can kind of look like, if we're feeling this way and maybe not realizing it?
Yeah, so sometimes it can look like procrastination. Like, I feel like as a society, we really oversimplify what procrastination is. And often women say, oh, I'm lazy or I'm not motivated. And, but actually sometimes, like, if there's a task that you keep putting off, maybe just check, like, am I telling myself that I'm an imposter here, that I'm not good enough to do this task? That could be one of the reasons. Like, I often find, procrastination, especially showing up on social media. Like, it's actually, we have to be so brave to like put ourselves out there this vulnerably and show up, as often as we do. And sometimes if we're not feeling so good about ourselves, that can be harder. And, our brains don't always want to see that. So there might be lots of other stories going on instead, like, I'm too busy, or it might look quite surface level, like, I have to be wearing makeup, or I have to be perfectly organized to show up. But when you go down deeper, it might be actually, I'm feeling like I'm not enough, or I'm feeling like there's something wrong with me and I need to hide away.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's and as you say, like, social media is such a big thing for people to be honestly needing to doing in their business. And so to have that kind of pressure, as well as then, like, if there's all these things going on inside that you're not quite aware of yet, or maybe you are aware of and you're like, I don't really want to push through that at the moment. It can be, there can lots of different things that can kind of get in the way. It's so interesting, isn't it? And so how have you ever found that you've struggled with self-worth in your business?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I feel like there's a bit of a myth. Like, we see business owners who are doing amazingly and we just assume that they have like a rock solid sense of self-worth. But yeah, there have definitely been times, like when I went from like my psychotherapy practice to more coaching, it felt really vulnerable and like really, really different, because like with my therapy practice, I just got like, GPs would just love my work and they would just refer. I never had to like ask for a client. I never had to sell myself. And at the beginning, if I like tried to launch something, or if I tried to like offer one-on-one coaching calls and I didn't get much of a response, I would go, oh my gosh, like, what's wrong with me? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I would make it all about myself. Whereas now I've been in business long enough to know that actually that's just part of the process. Like, sometimes you have to tell people about your work like 20 times before they decide to buy, and there's lots of other things going on and lots of competition. So like, I had an amazing launch when Frankie was like only maybe 2 months old. And then I had a really, really rough launch when she was 1. And like, but I felt like, I've really done this work on my self-worth, because even though like I was obviously disappointed in the launch results, I was actually okay with who I was. Like, I still felt good about myself. So, but yeah, I really want to normalize the idea that I think our self-worth does go up and down based on how our life's going, and that's pretty human.
Yeah. Yep. And I noticed it go up and down with my hormones too.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time I'm like, Jacqui is the best. Next time I'm like, Jacqui is the worst.
Yes. How much you love yourself and how you see yourself like is so fluid, I think, especially for women.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. What's going on in our lives, the seasons of our lives, the seasons of our body, like that definitely will affect how we see ourselves as well. But I guess the goal is that at the core, you do understand that, hey, no matter what's going on, I am still like this beautiful, lovable, enough human.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And so if someone was listening to this podcast and thinking, I think this is something I want to work through for myself, what would you say are some really great, like really practical steps that they can take to kind of start to own this and start to work through this in themselves?
I really love this question. Like, if I viewed myself as enough already, if I viewed myself as perfectly imperfect, how would I start living my life today? Like, how would I show up? And if you get your pen and paper out and journal on that and really like see what comes out, and maybe you'll be surprised. Like, it might be like, you know what, actually, I'm already ready to launch that business. I'm just going to show up and announce it. Or it might be, I would be working way less hard. Like, only you will know the answer to that question, but it's a really, really powerful way to start. Like, it's almost that concept of like acting as if. So if I did believe that I was enough right now, how would I be treating myself? How would I be showing up? How would I be talking to myself? And then also like writing some beautiful affirmations or like some positive statements about yourself. Like, I am enough. There's quite a few on my Instagram actually, but like, I am enough. Like, my productivity and my business results have nothing to do with my enoughness. Like, some of my clients like to, make really pretty ones in Canva, which I'm sure you're amazing at, and have them on their computer screens. But it's just like that constant, because when we learned that we weren't enough, that often kind of was like, a lot of our lives being told that we weren't good enough. And so then to unlearn that, you need to almost like have that new neural pathway formed every day. So try and think about more supportive, kind, loving ways that you can talk to yourself. And whether that's like an internal, more loving, compassionate voice, or it's having something written, and then just try and make sure that you're looking at that every day. Some people love, writing on the mirror, or, just somewhere that you're going to see it every day.
Yeah, it's like that reminding, like we were saying before, how we just need to be reminded so many times of certain things, of reminding ourselves over and over again of those truths. Because I guess if it's something that's been there our entire lives, it's been constantly reminded of in our own heads and through external sources of you're not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. And so it take a little while to rewire those things, but it's definitely possible. Hey.
Yeah, it is. And also, like, part of self-worth is like knowing that you matter as well. So like treating yourself with care, making sure that you rest. So like I have a rule, like I get to rest no matter how much work I've gotten done, like not feeling like you have to be productive and earn your rest first. Like you're a worthy woman rests, she gives herself permission to rest and look after herself as well.
That's a good one. I feel like, like you've done a few little like nugget affirmation kind of things. People can kind of just like really listen to this podcast and write down some of those key ones of, like, I don't have to earn my rest. Like that can be a beautiful affirmation in itself, of reminding yourself of that. Yeah, that's really, really cool. And so do you have any kind of like final tips for someone who's kind of thinking through this stuff of like, is there anything that we haven't kind of discussed that you think, this is a really important part of the puzzle we haven't covered?
I think like paying attention to how you talk about yourself, because self-worth, like if you think about it, it's how you see yourself, and how you see yourself then affects how you put yourself out there, how you talk about yourself to other people, and then that affects how people perceive you and your business. So if there are any areas in your business or relationships that feel a little bit clunky, just check in, like how am I viewing myself in this situation? Like what stories am I telling myself? And if I rewrote them, would that change how I show up in my business or in that relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful. I think we're often so unaware of those stories that are just going on in our heads that we just assume are the truth, but they may not necessarily be that. Hey.
Yeah. And can I add one more?
Yes, please.
Celebrate. I feel like the other thing is we live in this society where we're only like given permission to celebrate really huge things. Like, so, you hit 6 figures, you hit 7 figures, you had a massive launch, you can celebrate those. But I really believe, especially like what's going on with the economy and like some businesses are really struggling, like celebrate all of you as a person, like you are a whole human and you're enough in all of that. So like, even if something's going wrong in your business, or you're not happy with a launch, or you don't feel like you're being as productive, find something else that you can love and celebrate in yourself. Maybe that's that you got 8 hours sleep, or, that you feel like you're doing a beautiful job as a mom, or you just gave your daughter like the best hug, or I don't know, just find a moment in the day to celebrate, because your brain at the moment, often our brains are wired to only see problems and to see the things that went wrong.
Yeah.
And when you start to look for celebrations in like the small everyday moments, you're starting to rewire your brain to look for your strengths and your positive qualities and the things that you are doing well as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally resonate with that idea that our brain is just so wired to find problems. I'm like, am I the only person that thinks like this or has realized this? But like, even if life is amazing, I'm still finding the problems I want to solve and fix. And I'm like, Jacqui, if you had just bounced into this day from 5 years ago, you'd be like, wow, this is amazing. Look at my life. But we're just so prone to seek out the problem. So I love that idea of kind of just challenging ourselves moment by moment to, I guess it's gratitude, isn't it? Of like, what can I be thankful for about this situation? What can I be thankful for about myself? What is a cool thing that I just did right then? Like a hug. It doesn't have to be, oops, I yelled at my daughter, but at least I gave her a hug. Like celebrate those good things.
Yeah, like finding something within you to celebrate. I think it's like gratitude is important, but also if you are struggling a bit with self-worth, finding the things that you love about yourself, start with the little things. Because our brains are literally wired to find problems, because that's how we survived. And like it's taking a lot of work to undo that kind of pattern.
Yeah. I think, that's so true. I saw a really cool activity on Instagram. We always see cool things on Instagram where like they got like a little like a ink pad, and they put their in it, and they just put little thumbprints all around a page, and then inside each of the thumbprints they would write something they were proud of themselves for, or like I am beautiful, or I am kind, or I am whatever it is. And kind of just, I was like, that's a really cool activity, but I think I would really struggle with it personally.
Yes, I love that. Like, and doing that with children as well. Like, hopefully, the next generation will have like a better sense of like a better base rate of self-worth, I guess. If they, you know, there's lots of amazing artists out there who have beautiful songs. I do this song about I love my body with my daughter every day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And on Instagram, I can't credit who it is, but yeah, I'll try and send the link to you. But yeah, like I guess it's also, so when we do those things with the younger generation, with our children, we are actually also sending those messages to ourselves.
That's so true. I hadn't thought of it like that. And yeah, I'm a little bit terrified of passing the bad things on to Marley, but I guess, we can only ever do our best. And doing those little things of teaching them those things that are going to help us as well. That's kind of it's like a win-win, isn't it?
We can't be perfect, but I've noticed, for example, I talk really positively about my body in front of my daughter, and I say, oh yeah, I've got this squishy tummy and that's because you were in there, and I love my body. And I say all these things, and probably at the beginning of saying it, I was just doing it to try and be a good mom and be a good role model. But after a while, I actually started to like believe them and listen to them as well. So thinking about how you want your daughters to hear you talking about yourself, or if you don't have children, like how do you want the next generation to hear you talking about yourself? And that can be a really powerful motivator.
Yeah. And I was even thinking, like, in terms of motivators, like from a business perspective, if you're more confident and more sure of yourself and showing up more, then you're probably going to make more sales. Or if you're more likely to actually do that launch instead of being too scared of doing it, you're probably going to make more sales. And so if you're looking for an external motivator that's totally a little bit superficial but can really work, and I guess kind of realizing that actually, this working on this stuff can actually help my business as well as helping myself.
Oh, it absolutely does. Yeah, because the cost of not addressing your self-worth, like you don't really know what it is until you address it. And then you see, you know, like I've had some clients, their businesses have just really skyrocketed once they worked on their self-worth. And like from the outside, it just looked like they were having trouble showing up. Maybe they didn't like social media, or they're procrastinating a bit. But actually, once we address the self-worth, they were so much more able to show up, and their businesses have grown. So it definitely does help your business in like I guess, indirect way, you know?
Yeah. Because especially as those of us who have my business is me. Like if you work with White Deer, you work with Jacqui, I am the business. And so if I'm not performing, or I'm not thinking, or I'm not whatever it is, then it's going to affect the business. It just is how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so cool. And so thank you for that incredible information. If we would like to get to know you a little bit more, or jump into your world, or kind of get some of your help on this issue, how could we get in touch?
Yeah, the best way is to just reach me on Instagram. I mostly hang out there. I'm not really on a lot of the other accounts consistently. But yeah, so you can message me on Instagram at Samantha Dhu, send me a DM. And yeah, I've currently got a couple of one-on-one coaching spots available. But there's also, a lot of tips in my on my Instagram page, and a lot of like beautiful affirmations that you can use to support yourself as well.
That's really cool. I mean, people should just go to your Instagram and then screenshot a few of those beautiful kind of inspirations and affirmations, and kind of get this journey going. Because I guess it's going to be potentially a longer one, but it can be, I think every little step forward is going to really pay off, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think like sometimes it's not that long. It's just being aware of it and shifting the way you define it. Like for some people that can be enough to just drop in and go, oh yeah, actually
that was it. It's done.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Because I think the way people talk about self-worth is often like a bit misleading. Like people almost think that the definition of self-worth is that you have to do certain things to become worthy. Whereas I'm saying the complete
it's already there.
Yeah. So I think sometimes that can be enough. But yeah, some people have to go and do a little bit more work on it.
Yeah. And like just reiterating exactly what you said at the start there of, that worth is there because you're a person, and like a baby has worth even though it hasn't done anything to earn that worth. And so I think, that can be such a really powerful place to start. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for joining us today, Sam. It's been incredible to hear your wisdom and insights and your journey and your life. So thank you for sharing with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So thank you for joining Sam and I today. I hope you found that as helpful as I did. Don't forget to jump out there and start doing those things that Sam talked about writing it down, some affirmations, around rewriting those stories, and about trying to work out where these stories have come from in the first place. And don't forget to work with Sam too if you're interested in getting a little bit deeper into this stuff. So thank you for listening. Join me in the next 2 weeks for another guest episode, or in the meantime for Canva tutorials and branding and strategy tips. See you then.